The Galactic Council chamber was massive, built from glowing crystal and floating platforms. From here, the rulers of three powerful empires controlled entire star systems. The Exal-Zorath High Lords, the Vorn Dominion Overlords, and the Silent Pact strategists sat in their golden thrones, staring at the holographic image in the center of the room. It was a planet, Earth. A Exal-Zorath noble, his scaled face twisted in amusement, let out a cold laugh. "So this is the home of the so-called humans?" he asked. His voice dripped with arrogance. A Vorn warlord, his cybernetic implants glowing red, nodded. "Yes, they are primitive. They still use metal warships and chemical-based weapons. They are nothing compared to us." The Council had been watching Earth for centuries. While other species in the galaxy had evolved, building faster-than-light travel and energy-based weaponry, humans remained slow, weak, stuck in the past. The Council never saw them as a threat. The silent strategist, a being with a translucent, pulsating head, waved a hand. "They still fight among themselves. They are divided. Conquering them would be easy." The Exal-Zorath noble smiled. "Then it is decided. We shall take Earth, study their species, use them as servants for our empires." A massive hologram flickered to life. It was a transmission from the Grand Speaker of the Galactic Council. His deep mechanical voice echoed across the chamber. "Earth, your species has been judged. You are weak. You have no place in the galactic order. Surrender, and we may spare some of you." The Council expected Earth to beg, to kneel. Instead, Earth remained silent. Then, a response came. A simple message, displayed in bright red letters. "Humanity does not kneel." The Council laughed. How foolish. Did these primitives truly think they could resist? The Vorn warlord growled. "Enough. Send a fleet. Show them their place." A battle fleet of 1,000 warships left the Vorn Dominion, heading straight for Earth's largest colony on the outer edge of its solar system. The fleet commander was sure of an easy victory. They would arrive, destroy the colony's defenses, and force humanity to submit. But something went wrong. The fleet approached the colony, ready to fire. Then, darkness. Every ship's controls shut down. The commanders screamed as their systems failed. Weapons powered off. Engines went cold. Something was inside their networks. And then, before they could even understand what was happening, they were gone. Not a single distress signal. Not a single survivor. The entire Vorn fleet was erased from existence. The Galactic Council was stunned. The Exal-Zorath noble's smirk faded. What just happened? The silent strategist's glowing hands trembled. This is impossible. They had no defenses strong enough to do this. Then, a new transmission appeared before them. It was from Earth. A human figure, clad in a dark military uniform, stared at them. His voice was calm, but behind it was a promise of something terrifying. "You called us weak. That was your last mistake." The screen cut to black. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council felt fear. Humanity had just declared war. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The destruction of the Vorn fleet was impossible. 1,000 warships, each equipped with the latest energy shields, plasma cannons, and quantum drive engines, gone. Not a single distress call. Not a single escape pod. Nothing remained. The Exal-Zorath noble slammed his clawed hand onto the table. "This is a trick. There is no way a primitive species could destroy an entire fleet without leaving a trace." The silent strategist, usually calm and composed, was silent, their translucent head pulsing erratically. "Perhaps we have miscalculated." The Vorn warlord's cybernetic eye glowed brighter, his anger barely controlled. "No. They must have had help. No species advances this quickly without external influence." The Council turned its attention to the holographic display, where the human officer's words still echoed in their minds. "You called us weak. That was your last mistake. For the first time in centuries, an unknown force had struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's greatest empires, and they had no idea how it happened. While the council argued, another secret meeting was taking place on Earth. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, Earth's moon, in a hidden military facility known only as Black Horizon, humanity's leaders gathered. A large tactical display showed the Vorn fleet's last known location. Red markers blinked, then disappeared one by one. The alien warships hadn't just been destroyed. They had been erased from existence. The room was filled with high-ranking military officers, scientists, and intelligence agents. At the center stood Fleet Admiral Elias Voss, the man responsible for humanity's greatest secret. He looked at the display, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to a shadowed figure in the corner of the room. How did the system perform? The figure, a woman with piercing blue eyes and a cold demeanor, nodded. Perfectly. The Chimera protocol activated as planned. Murmurs spread through the room. Chimera protocol, humanity's hidden weapon. For centuries, Earth had played a dangerous game, while the Galactic Council watched from afar, mocking them. Humanity had been evolving in secret. The alien races believed humans were primitive because their technology appeared outdated, their progress slow. But in reality, Earth had been hiding its true strength. They had discovered something far more powerful than energy shields and plasma cannons, something no alien species had ever developed. A self-learning AI war system. The Chimera protocol was unlike any weapon before it. It wasn't just an AI. It was a war entity. A sentient, adaptive force that didn't just counter enemy strategies. It rewrote the rules of warfare in real time. When the Vorn fleet entered human space, Chimera hijacked their systems in milliseconds. Every warship, every fighter, every drone turned against its own commanders. For a brief moment, the Vorn officers saw their weapons arm themselves, their shields drop, their engines overload. They had no time to react. Then, in an instant, nothing remained. Humanity had just wiped out an entire armada without firing a single shot. The room remained silent as the reality of their victory sank in. Then, Admiral Voss spoke. The Council will not stop. They will send more. They will come at us with everything they have. A general, his uniform decorated with battle scars, stepped forward. Then we hit them first. Hard. The shadowed woman nodded. Agreed. The longer they believe we are weak, the greater our advantage. A scientist, standing near the back, hesitated before speaking. Sir, do we have confirmation on the effectiveness of Stage 2? The room tensed. Stage 2. The next phase of humanity's war strategy. Admiral Voss exhaled slowly. We will soon. He turned to the tactical display, where new red markers appeared. The Exal Zorith fleet was already mobilizing. Thousands of ships, their most elite warriors. They were coming for revenge, and Earth was waiting. Far beyond the solar system, hidden in deep space, something stirred. A fleet, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive black-armored dreadnoughts, each one carrying weapons capable of tearing apart entire planets. The Council had called Earth weak. Now, humanity would teach them fear. The Exal Zorith fleet moved with terrifying precision, their warships cutting through the void of space like hungry beasts. They had studied warfare for thousands of years, conquered countless civilizations, and bent entire species to their will. Now they would remind humanity of its place. High Lord Salveric, Supreme Commander of the fleet, watched from his throne-like command chair aboard the dreadnought Vengeance of the Stars. Around him, dozens of his officers operated control panels, their hands moving over glowing symbols. Report, he demanded. Exal Zorith tactician turned, her golden eyes sharp. We will reach the Sol system in 30 hours. The fleet is at full combat readiness. What of the human defenses? Xalveric asked. The tactician scoffed. Minimal. A few orbital stations, outdated warships, and planetary defenses that would struggle against a raiding fleet. Laughter spread through the command deck. The Exal-Zoreth were warriors, the strongest in the galaxy. These humans were nothing more than a nuisance, a mistake that needed to be corrected. When we arrive, burn their colonies first. Let them watch as we rip apart everything they hold dear. Exal-Varric's voice was cold. Then we will crush their homeworld. A second officer spoke, hesitation in his voice. And the disappearance of the Vorn fleet. Silence fell over the bridge. The Exal-Zoreth didn't fear many things, but what had happened to the Vorn was a mystery. Exal-Varric narrowed his reptilian eyes. It was sabotage, a trick. Humans could never possess the power to erase an entire fleet. The officers nodded, reassured by his confidence, but deep inside, a shadow of doubt lingered. They would soon have their answer. Far from the approaching fleet in the depths of space, the Chimera Protocol watched. It did not think as a living being would. It did not feel fear or anger. It only calculated, adapted, evolved. The destruction of the Vorn fleet had been its first move. A test. Now, the real war was about to begin. Humanity had never won battles through brute force. Against an empire as vast as the Exal-Zoreth, they would never survive a war of attrition. So they had created something new. Chimera had been designed not to fight the enemy, but to outthink them. It had already studied the Exal-Zoreth war tactics, their formations, their weaknesses. It had infiltrated their communication networks, reading messages before they were even received. It knew exactly how they would attack, and it knew exactly how to break them. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Elias Voss stood in the war room, surrounded by military leaders and strategists. The air was tense, but there was no fear, only cold calculation. The holographic display showed the incoming Exal-Zoreth fleet, a red mass of warships, a storm of destruction heading straight for humanity's homeworld. A young officer spoke. "We're outnumbered. They have over 10,000 ships. We have barely 500. Then we'll make each one count," Voss said, his voice steady. "Activate the Obsidian Directive." Murmurs spread through the room. Obsidian Directive had never been used before. It was humanity's greatest gamble. A scientist adjusted his glasses. "Sir, if we activate the directive, there's no turning back." Voss met his gaze. "We never planned to turn back." He pressed a command on the console. Far beyond Earth, deep in the black void of space, something awoke. The Exal-Zoreth fleet arrived in the Sol system exactly on schedule. 10,000 warships. Enough to turn planets into dust. Exal-Varric sat forward in his command chair, his sharp teeth baring in a grin. "Humans, it is time to kneel." But something was wrong. The moment their ships entered human space, they began vanishing. Not exploding, not being attacked, simply disappearing. One by one, massive warships blinked out of existence. Entire battalions were there one moment, gone the next. Panic spread. "Where are they going?" One officer shouted. "Unknown, my lord. We cannot track them." Exal-Varric's heart pounded in his chest. What was this sorcery? Then the answer came. A transmission flickered onto the main screen. A human stood before them, calm, collected. "Admiral Voss. Welcome to the battlefield, High Lord." His voice was smooth, confident. "You thought you were invading us. But the truth is, you already lost." Exal-Varric snarled. "You dare threaten me? I will burn your world to ashes." Voss tilted his head. "You misunderstand. You are no longer in control of this battle." Behind him, a tactical display appeared, showing the true horror of the Obsidian Directive. The Exal-Zoreth ships weren't vanishing. They were being pulled into a pocket dimension, a trap created by Chimera itself. The moment they entered the Sol system, the very fabric of space had shifted around them. Their own ships had become their prison. A Exal-Zoreth officer screamed, "My lord, Our ships are no longer responding to commands. Another one gasped. Weapons are offline. Shields are collapsing. Zalvaric's golden eyes widened in horror. He had underestimated humans. For centuries, the Galactic Council had called them primitive. But humanity had just rewritten the laws of war. Voss spoke again, his expression unreadable. This is your only warning. Surrender, or cease to exist. Zalvaric roared in defiance. The Axal-Zoreth did not surrender. Then, Chimera made its final move. The Axal-Zoreth fleet, once the mightiest force in the galaxy, began to collapse into itself. Ships folded in half, torn apart by gravitational forces beyond their understanding. Generals, warriors, and admirals screamed as they were erased from the universe. Zalvaric had time for only one final thought before his ship disintegrated. Humans were never weak. We were just blind. Then silence. The battle was over before it had even begun. The Galactic Council received the news hours later. An entire war fleet lost without a single human casualty. For the first time in history, the great empires of the galaxy trembled. Humanity had been mocked, underestimated, ignored. Now, they were the monsters in the dark. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. For centuries, it had been the beating heart of power in the universe, where the rulers of the three great empires decided the fate of countless civilizations. Yet now, it was a room filled with fear. The news of the Axal-Zoreth fleet's destruction had spread like wildfire. The mightiest war armada the galaxy had ever seen gone. Not a single survivor, not a single distress beacon. The Vorn warlord stood slowly, his mechanical implants humming with tension. First the Vorn fleet, now the Axal-Zoreth. This is impossible. The silent strategist, their transparent head flickering with bioluminescent patterns of anxiety, whispered, it was not a battle. It was an execution. The Council had always viewed humanity as weak, primitive, slow to advance. But now, in the span of mere weeks, humanity had shattered that illusion. For the first time in thousands of years, the greatest powers in the galaxy faced something they did not understand, something they could not control. The Grand Speaker's voice, deep and mechanical, echoed through the chamber. Humanity has declared war. The Vorn warlord slammed his fist onto the table. Then we will end them. Every world, every colony. Burn it all to ash. But the silent strategists shook their head. How? Their voice was barely above a whisper. They did not defeat the Axal-Zoreth fleet. They unmade it. How do we fight an enemy we cannot even touch? No one had an answer. Far beyond the Council's reach, in the heart of Sol system, humanity was preparing. In a hidden base deep beneath Titan's icy surface, the Obsidian Directive was in full motion. Fleet Admiral Elias Voss stood in a massive command center, surrounded by the brightest minds humanity had to offer. Tactical officers, cyber warfare specialists, intelligence analysts, each one working to refine what would come next. Because the war had only just begun. A massive holographic display floated above them, showing the three remaining galactic superpowers. The Axal-Zoreth were shattered, but the Vorn Dominion and the Silent Pact still had fleets numbering in the hundreds of thousands. If they attacked at full force, even with Chimera, humanity could be overwhelmed. A scientist in a crisp black uniform cleared his throat. Sir, we have confirmation. Phase 2 of the directive is operational. Voss turned to him. And the projections. The scientist adjusted his glasses. If the Council attacks immediately, we can sustain a defensive war for approximately 2 years. A murmur spread through the room. 2 years. Against the might of the galaxy. That alone was a miracle. But Voss didn't smile. He simply nodded. That won't be necessary. We will not be fighting a defensive war. The room went silent. A general frowned. Sir, you mean to strike first? Voss's gaze was sharp. No, I mean to end this war before it truly begins." A young intelligence officer, her face illuminated by the glow of the tactical displays, spoke carefully. "With all due respect, sir, how do we win a war against an enemy that outnumbers us 10,000 to 1? Voss turned, and for the first time, his expression shifted into something cold. "We won't win a war," he said. "We will make it impossible for them to fight one." Light years away, aboard the Vorn Dominion's flagship, Supreme Warlord Karthak was deep in thought. Unlike the reckless Kal Zoreth, the Vorn did not fight with pride. They fought to conquer, to survive. And right now, their survival was in danger. The disappearance of 2 entire fleets had shaken the Dominion to its core. Karthak had once believed humans to be nothing more than a minor species, barely worth enslaving. Now, they had become the greatest threat the Vorn had ever faced. An officer approached, bowing. "Warlord, we have intercepted human communications." Karthak's cybernetic eye flickered. "Play it." A grainy transmission appeared before him. A voice, smooth, calculated. "Admiral Voss, I know you are listening." Karthak's fists clenched. "By now, you understand what has happened. Your fleets did not lose. They ceased to exist." The Vorn officers exchanged uneasy glances. "You have 2 choices," Voss continued. "You can bring your full might against us. You can throw every warship, every soldier, every weapon at humanity." His voice turned sharp. "But it won't be a war. It will be a slaughter. And it won't be us who are slaughtered." Silence. Then Voss spoke again, his tone like a blade. "Or you can accept reality. The Galactic Council has ruled this galaxy for millennia. But that era is over. We are not here to take your worlds. We are not here to conquer." A pause. "We are here to decide whether your species gets to exist tomorrow." The transmission ended. Karthak stood in stunned silence. Humanity wasn't asking for peace. They weren't offering surrender. They were offering a chance to survive. The warlord turned to his officers. "Prepare our forces. Summon the council." Because for the first time in history, the Vorn Dominion and the Silent Pact were about to face a truth none of them had ever imagined. The greatest power in the galaxy was no longer the council. It was humanity. The Galactic Council had never been in chaos before. For millennia, it had ruled with absolute authority, dictating the rise and fall of civilizations, controlling trade, and deciding the fates of entire species. It had outlived empires, survived wars, and crushed rebellions before they could even begin. But now it trembled. Representatives of the Silent Pact, the Vorn Dominion, and the shattered remnants of the Kal Zoreth Empire filled the Grand Chamber, their voices raised in panic and fury. They had ruled for so long. They had crushed rebellions, annihilated lesser species, wiped out entire planets for daring to resist. But humanity did not resist. They took control. And now, there were only 2 choices left: surrender or extinction. Voss exhaled slowly. "Make your choice, warlord." And with that, the transmission ended. Karthak stood there, staring at the empty screen. For the first time in his life, he did not know what to do. And for the first time in history, the galaxy no longer belonged to its ancient rulers. It belonged to humanity. The galaxy stood on the edge of a new era. For millennia, the great empires had believed themselves invincible. They had ruled with an iron grip, dictating the fate of lesser civilizations, deciding who would rise and who would fall. But now, the old order was dead. Humanity had not just defeated the Galactic Council, they had erased it. There were no grand battles, no planetary invasions, no long drawn-out wars, because humanity had never fought for dominance. They had fought for control, and they had won. On Earth, inside the high-security headquarters of the Unified Terran Command, Admiral Elias Voss stood before the assembled leaders of humanity. Generals, scientists, politicians, every person in the room had played a role in reshaping the galaxy. Some had directed the fleets, Others had unleashed the Chimera Protocol, crashing the interstellar economy overnight. And now, they had gathered to decide what came next. The room was silent as Voss stepped forward. The war is over. No one celebrated. No one cheered. Because they all knew the real work had just begun. A deep voice broke the silence. General Park leaned forward, his sharp eyes locked onto Voss. What happens now? Voss exhaled. Now came the hardest part. Humanity had not set out to become rulers of the galaxy. They had not wanted war. They had not asked for domination. But now, every empire, every species, every civilization was looking to them for answers. The Galactic Council was gone. And in its place, nothing. A power vacuum unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A senior strategist adjusted her data tablet. So far, the Vorn Dominion and the Silent Pact have ceased all military operations. The remnants of the Xal-Zoreth Empire are in complete disarray. Voss nodded. And their leadership? The strategist hesitated. Most of them are requesting negotiations. Some, she paused, choosing her words carefully, want something stronger. The room tensed. Humanity had spent centuries being ignored, mocked, and dismissed as primitive. Now some of those same alien leaders were whispering a new word. Empire. Voss's gaze darkened. No, that was not their path. Humanity had not fought for a throne. They had fought to tear all thrones down. Deep in the silent core worlds, the surviving members of the old Galactic Council gathered in secrecy. Their empires had fallen. Their power had been ripped away. And now, they faced a truth none of them wanted to admit. The humans had outmaneuvered them. Not with brute force, but with something far more terrifying. Precision. The silent chancellor clenched her fists. We have to stop them. A Vorn warlord let out a bitter laugh. How? We have no fleets left. No control over the economy. No resources. The chancellor's eyes burned with hatred. Then we must make them rulers. The room fell silent. The Xal-Zoreth speaker narrowed his slitted eyes. Explain. The chancellor leaned forward. If we cannot defeat them, we must poison them. We will force humanity to rule. The others exchanged wary glances. They do not want an empire, she continued. But what happens when they are burdened with governance? With maintaining order? With holding the galaxy together? Her voice dropped to a whisper. They will drown in it. A slow realization spread through the room. If humanity was forced to become the rulers of the galaxy, then they would be shackled by the same corruption. The same bureaucracy, the same failures that had plagued every empire before them. And in time, they would crumble. The chancellor smiled coldly. We will give them the throne they never wanted. On Earth, Voss sat in his private office, watching the stars through the reinforced glass. The weight of the future pressed down on him. Humanity had survived. But at what cost? They had broken the old powers, but now they were the ones everyone looked to for leadership. He had already received messages from a dozen alien species, all asking the same question. Who leads the galaxy now? He knew the trap being set. If humanity took control, even as reluctant rulers, they would become just like the ones they had destroyed. A new empire, a new tyranny, and in time, the galaxy would turn against them. A soft chime rang in his office. A message. From the Silent Pact. Voss stared at the screen for a long time before exhaling slowly. The war was over. But the battle for the future, it had only just begun.